Hey everyone, today we are going to be playing a counters based deck in Bant colors. It's not counter spells, but +1/+1 counters. We're going to be proliferating and accumulating counters basically as quickly as possible in a creature based deck that starts off hopefully very quickly and finishes our opponent off before they can really stabilize. So we've got a lot of creatures that are going to accumulate counters naturally, as well as a couple of cards that will place them on in order to finish the game. At the low end of our curve, we got Pelt Collector. Is a very, very strong one-drop for this deck. Whenever a creature with power greater than it enters the battlefield under your control or dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. So you play him as a 1/1, and then if you play a 2/2 on turn 2, he's a 2/2 himself, and can keep going from there. We have Wildwood Scourge, since we're going to be placing counters on other creatures. Every time we do so, this is an X Hydra. Every time we place a counter on another creature, we're going to put a counter on this Hydra as well. Typically, I will play this for basically X equals 1 as quickly as I can. Sometimes it'll be 2 as a follow-up to Pelt Collector. If you do X equals 2, then it comes in with 2 counters, and the Pelt Collector gets a counter on it, which makes the Wildwood Scourge come in as a 3/3. So there's some strong synergy there, but you need 3 mana to do so. It's a good either 2-drop or 3-drop depending on how your deck's looking. We are running 4 Quirion Dryads. This is a 1/1 that puts a counter on itself every time you cast a blue, black, or red spell, which is most of our deck. And as long as it's not just green, it will put a counter on. A lot of our key cards will. It's just those 2 1-drops and the Scavenging Ooze here that won't trigger it. So Quirion Dryad grows pretty quickly. Every time you cast one of those spells, it will get a counter, as well as a Wildwood Scourge getting a counter. So it will get big itself pretty quick. The only thing it won't do is trigger a Pelt Collector, because it will always come in as a 1/1. We have 2 Scavenging Oozes here, and I had to make a decision between going for 4 Dryads or 4 Oozes. I ended up going with the 4 Dryads because I think it's a stronger early game. The Scavenging Ooze is a stronger late game, but I preferred a quicker, more aggressive start. But we've got these Oozes. It's a 2/2 for 2, so when it comes in, it will trigger a Pelt Collector if it's 1/1. And then you can pay mana to exile cards from graveyards and put counters on the Scavenging Ooze if there are any creatures in your graveyard. So this can trigger counters on demand, which will bump up your Wildwood Scourge, as well as just be a dangerous threat itself. Being able to eat stuff like Uro is pretty nice as well, so it's a good card and maybe worth trying to find room for 2 more copies. And then finally, we've got some of the stuff that makes the whole deck tick. We've got Conclave Mentor. This is a 2/2 for 2. It's white and green. And whenever a counter will be placed on a creature you control, put an additional counter on that creature. So now when you play a Wildwood Scourge, it's going to get an additional counter when it comes into play. And whenever any other creature gets a counter, the Wildwood Scourge is going to get 2 counters instead of 1. Your Pelt Collector is going to get 2 +1/+1 counters anytime a larger creature comes into play. And that includes this Conclave Mentor, going turn 1 Pelt Collector into turn 2 Mentor, turns your Pelt Collector into a 3/3. So it's very, very potent. Pretty much all of your cards will get way too big too quickly as long as Conclave Mentor is in play. And then finally, we've got Huatli's Raptor. When it comes in, you proliferate, you add an extra counter on each of your creatures that has a counter. And this works with Conclave Mentor. If Mentor's in play, then the Raptor will proliferate and add 2 counters onto any of those permanents. The Raptor will obviously trigger Quirion Dryad and can trigger an empty Pelt Collector as well. We've got a couple other creatures at the very top end. The Skatewing Spy, I've got a couple copies of, just as a way to get all of our creatures into the red zone. Each creature you control with +1/+1 counter as flying, so as soon as you plop it down, your guys will be in the air and able to swing for lethal. If it's not quite to that point yet, you can put a counter on himself as well, from which you can later proliferate, or trigger a Wildwood Scourge, that sort of thing. It's very expensive to do, so I haven't really had to rely on that, thankfully. A lot of the other cards in the deck will do a better job than spending 6 mana just to cast an Adaptus Gatewing Spy. But it's an option there if you need. And we have one Roll-esque Apex Hybrid because I had it in my collection. It's on theme, but I think this is a slot that'd be better served with something lower curve and less roundabout. But it was pretty cool. So this is a creature, 4/5 flyer on its own for 5 mana. And it puts 2+1/+1 counters on another creature you control. And when it dies, you get to proliferate twice. So assuming you have other creatures, it's very strong. On its own, it's not great, but if you have a bit of a board, then the hybrid is a threat that has to be addressed itself, but they can't until they've dealt with your other creatures as well, so it's a bit of a crisis of which things to deal with. Unfortunately, this deck is pretty weak against board wipes across the board, because you need to play out multiple creatures to get their synergies with each other, which is a bit of a problem. So for protection, to keep our synergies alive and on the board, we've got 3 feet of resistance, which is protection for a creature, and you put a counter on it. So this can trigger Wildwood Scourges. It can give counters to creatures like Conclave Mentor and the Raptor, so that they can proliferate those cards. And since it's white, we'll trigger Clarion Giant as well. Plus, if you got a Conclave Mentor out, this is a +2/+2. That sticks around when you play it, because it's going to put 2 counters on that creature. I am running Unsubstantiate because I wanted something to deal with board wipes, and this was a very efficient kind of tool that did 2 things. One, it put like Wrath of God effects back into their hand for a critical turn. Basically, at the point where they're trying to wrath the board, frequently you'll be swinging for lethal next turn, so it's enough to save you. But it also gets annoying blockers out of the way and deals with some pesky creatures. So it's a kind of a flexible counter spell at 2 mana, so it sneaks in at the 4-drop. You can even play like a Pelt Collector instead on Unsubstantiate at 3 mana, or play Aquarian Dryad instead on Unsubstantiate. So just being at 2, I thought was a really nice cost for it. So, and it did a couple different things for the deck. And then we got Unbreakable Formation. Creatures gain indestructible until end of turn, and if you cast it during your main phase, they get vigilance, and you put 1/1 counters on everything. This makes, if you got a bit of a board, this can be pretty ridiculous in terms of how much power you gain from playing this. Putting 1/1 counters on everything opens you up to proliferating afterwards. It means that if you have a Mentor out, you're putting 2/2 on everything. If you got a Wildwood Scourge, it gets another +1/+1 for every other creature that's getting a counter. And then they all swing, so it's an easy attack. They probably lose all their blockers and take a large chunk of damage, if not die outright. And you can hold it up in case of board wipes too, so it's a good utility spell. It's got a little bit of extra function beyond heroic intervention, which is 2 mana, get indestructible, that sort of thing. And I forgot to scroll down a little bit. There's one more creature in our deck, which is most of the reason why I'm playing blue in this deck. Which is a 2 mana blue-green flyer. It's a 1/1, but when it comes in, you put a 1/1 counter on a creature you control, and you can proliferate on demand with it. And every time you proliferate, each creature that you put a counter on is going to trigger Wildwood Scourge as well, so it could get a little crazy. Yeah, and then we just got a breakdown of lands. Obviously, we're in 3 colors, so we're playing as many shocks as we can. This deck would probably be better and more consistent in just 2 colors, and I've seen a lot of variations of it at that. But I wanted to play the Skydiver, and honestly, Skatewing Spy is pretty reasonable as a 4 mana kind of kill switch. Just dropping it down and giving all your stuff flying is worth it at the top end. So I've found it paying off. Plus, I've been looking for a good reason to run Unsubstantiate, and it's worked pretty well in this deck. So let us go ahead and play a couple games before this deck rotates out of Standard. We've got 2 hours left before the new set is here. We'll play a few. We'll see what we can do. This deck, I think, relies on strong starts, especially with Pelt Collector. If you are missing a 1-drop Pelt Collector, then it's a little rough. And Pelt Collector is our only 1-drop in the deck, so it's a little hit or miss. But it can be a lot of fun. I've seen some pretty insane board states come from it. Alright, well this looks pretty reasonable to me. We've got some pretty dire threats here that they'll have to use spot removal on. In my experience, by the time you play a 3rd must-remove card, they're running a little low on removal. So, these come in tapped lands. I'm I'm not really happy about. But there are a lot of 2-drops in this deck, so playing it on turn 3 is usually okay. Alright, we get shocked. Our opponent's considering. Oh, he doesn't shock us. Opponent comes in tapped. Now thinks about shocking us. Nope. Alright, we get away with it. We are going to go ahead and scry with this land because we're going to play the other Quirion Dryad. Wildwood Scourge. I will take it. And we'll play a second Quirion Dryad. I don't think there's any red flashy that I need to worry about, so I'm going to go ahead and swing. If he had like white or black up, then I wouldn't really risk it, because 1 damage is not going to be that relevant. And so the potential of a flash creature is a little dangerous, but I don't think there's a red flash creature that could have eaten my Quirion Dryad. Our opponent is ramping. Alright, well, let's see. So this is a good time to play, yeah, this is going to be a good tempo play. We're going to play Wildwood Scourge at a humble 1. We'll tap this for white and green, because I want to play the Merfolk Skydiver, and we're going to get an insanely big Scourge right away. So first off, we're going to get 2 counters on our Quirion Dryad here, which is going to pump 2 more counters on our Scourge. And then we're going to put 1 on our Skydiver to get a 2/2. Now, I'm a little leery of this, yeah, I think I'm going to do it anyways, though. I think this is an Infuriate. I think he's going to block and pump his guy. Nope. Alright. Our recklessness paid off. So our opponent's had a pretty slow start, but has, okay, played a Terror of the Peaks. It's a pretty good card. No creatures in the graveyard yet. I'm gonna go ahead and scry and see what we're looking at here. I don't want that. So, yeah, we're just gonna play the Skatewing Spy, put 2 counters on the Quirion Dryad, make our Scourge a 6/6, and go ahead and attack just with him. Alright, we get through. Next turn, provided he doesn't kill our Skydiver, we're probably just going to proliferate, turn all of our guys big, and get in for 4, 4, and 9, I think? Nope, 10 from the Skydiver. Oh, so he gets to kill... Okay, he doesn't want me to have... I think that was a mistake. I think he's going to realize just how big this Skydiver was shortly, unless he got a 2-drop. Maybe he just kills the Skydiver. Oh, okay. Alright, well, we're about to get wrecked. Where did his extra... Wait, where did his extra... Oh, he tapped that. Okay. Well, that was a very good turn for him. Play Scavenging Ooze. He got rid of all the right cards. That Terror of the Peaks is a brutally good card. Let's see. I'm not gonna pay the 2 here, and we'll just pass for now. Never seen someone actually play Volcanic Salva, but that worked for him. Yeah, unfortunately, so this deck is basically no removal, so I couldn't do anything about the Terror of the Peaks. Alright, well, I think we'll concede. Off to a very strong start, but Terror of the Peaks basically wrecked us. I don't think it was the Volcanic Salvo. I do think it was just getting a 2-for-1 with the 4 damage from the creature. That's okay. Had we had an Unsubstantiate or a Feat of Resistance, this would have been a very different game. but that's fine. There are some options for removal in the deck that you can include. I went for pure aggro. I haven't really tested it out, but there are a couple. There are 2 cards in particular I'm thinking for spot removal besides Unsubstantiate. Alright, this is, I think this is an acceptable hand. We'll get to scry here and hopefully smooth out the curve. Another Wildwood Scourge or a land. I did get a 3rd land. I think I would rather have a Scavenging Ooze or a Quirion Dryad or a Pulp Collector, something to get more counters naturally. I guess I got another Wildwood Scourge, so that's okay. What is the order that will get the most counter? Yeah, go ahead and do this because I want to have. Yeah. Another mentor? Yeah, that actually seems really good to me. So let us... go like this. Alright, Ben's just gonna wipe the board. I think that's okay. We'll just keep Unsubstantiate mana up. Maybe playing the Scourge would have been better. Okay, so he goes for a slow Alseid. And passes. That seems suspicious to me. Let's go ahead and just attack. Seems fine. I think this is a Murderous Rider. I'm just gonna do this. Okay, didn't Murderous Rider. Extinction Event. Okay. So I think best thing to do right now is just pull one of these back to my hand. Bouncing his event's not going to do me a whole lot right now. Opponent's playing a lot of board wipes, which I've already talked about is a bad situation for us. So we've got a lot of good options now. Going to do this and force him to do another board wipe, I think, or find some spot removal. It's disappointing that I don't have another mana and unsubstantiate up, but it is what it is. Cavalier of Dawn, alright. 3/3. We might be able to go over this Cavalier, but it's going to be a little hard. Doesn't have any good enchantments to return at the moment. I think best is just to go for the quick speed here. Alright, so we've got a few big creatures. Not big enough to get through his Cavalier of Dawn yet, but he's going to need another Extinction Event, which of course he has. Alright. I'm going to go ahead and wager that he doesn't have another board wipe, because I don't think we got a choice. Yeah, I want to do it in this order. I'll go ahead and attack. Another shatter. Can't quite kill him, so I'll just take 4. Yep, alright, he's got to shadow this guy. Oh, we're gonna have to draw like a skate wing or something. I don't know. Not a land. Well, if he has a threat, then we'll just concede, because we're not going to recover from another Cavalier. But yeah, this deck can't really fight through 4 board wipes. It did pretty well in the first 3, but... Oh, Skydiver. That is probably our best option here. So now we do have protection up for the Skydiver. Not going to race an Alseid, unfortunately, but... Oh, I don't care about your Murderous Rider. Get out of here with that nonsense. He's going to double Murderous Rider. Alright, prop black. Yeah, this Castle Lochlin's pretty good right now. A Cavalier. Okay. Alright, well, when you have exactly the cards you need to win, we're just going to concede. Board wipes all day, spot removal, and big creatures. I think we can do better than that. Let's go one more. Alright, so we got our colors. We have Pelt Collector and Raptor and Unsubstantiate. I think we'll go with this. So, I'd like to draw a Conclave Mentor next. That'd be the bee's knees. Did not get that. So I have to choose... Alright, I'm going to go ahead and attack. Not resolved. I'm going to get Wildwood Scourge next. So we got the Visionary, so I need to start pumping everything. If I want to swing this turn, the Skydiver will not get me there. Unless I put its counter on the Pelt Collector, which is not what I want to do. That's not true. I'm not giving up that much damage by going Skydiver. I didn't realize that he could trade there. That was really dumb of me. And I'm glad that he didn't trust it. So now he needs a board wipe. Which means if he doesn't kill all our stuff this turn, then we go Huatli's Raptor, hold up Unsubstantiate, and probably win off of that. But maybe he's running a Oh, he goes for more ramp. That makes me suspect casualties of war, which will hurt us pretty bad. All right, no Hydra. That's fine. I'll take it a little slow here. Ideally, he will use spot removal on Conclave Mentor, where I get to Feat of Resistance it, and then proliferate everything next turn for the kill. But we're not able to count on that. I will Feat of Resistance whatever he uses spot removal on, or if it's at Casualties of War, probably put it back in my deck. I don't care about an Underworld Dreams, actually. I've seen these decks. This is going to peer into the abyss on me to try and one-shot me, make me draw half my library and lose half my life, and then lose half of the cards in my library. Okay, so he is tapped out. Let me do some quick math here. If I Huatli's Raptor and unsummon this, then I can go 4, 8. This would need counters on it for 12. It's not lethal. That's fine. I've got the unsubstantiate for what's obviously going to happen next turn, so this is okay. The best question is, do I go ahead and Feat of Resistance now? And I think the answer is yes. This will give me a pretty lethal swing next round. Alright, take a damage. Resolve. We go for the Raptor. We get way too many counters. And then he's got to chump block my Raptor pretty much. Wasn't going to be lethal. I'm glad to see I did my math right on that. But very bad news for him next turn. Especially since his answer to this is probably going to be to tap out for 7 mana to kill me, and that's not going to fly. Show me your peer into the abyss. Scry that mana. I'm surprised that I've encountered this Peer into the Abyss deck so many times. I'm assuming, I mean, it's got to be with Underworld Dreams. That has to be the only reason they would play that. Alright, here we go. Oh. Nope. He is getting land. And losing his only blockers to do so. Board wipe? It's gotta be. Yeah. Let's go ahead and put that back in your hand. Success! We take a damage, and there we go. That was pretty quick. Let's try one more and see if we can get to an even 50-50 win ratio. I'll go to the play queue, I said, where I'll lose fewer games, and then I just lose all the games. But it's not usually to a bunch of counter spells and strong decks that don't let me play my cards, so I'm okay with this. We've at least seen how the counters pile up. It's as I said, get wrecked by board wipes. Okay, this is enough to work on. We've got our colors here. Skydiver is gas. We'll do it. We'll go Korean Dryad. Opponent's playing blue, so we might run into some counterspell resistance. I've been beat down by Brineborn Cutthroats before. Yeah, Sea Dasher Octopus is pretty swell. Unfortunately, I don't really have a good solution for that. I can try trading it with my Merfolk Diver. More likely, Unsubstantiate's a better option. gonna go with the Skydiver, see if he is willing to swing into the Sea Dash Rock, or swing into it with the Dash Octopus. I think he's gonna bounce the Skydiver. Okay, he's gonna buff the Octopus. Interesting. I don't think he's running Shatter the Sky. Scourge for 1, I think, is the optimal play here. He's drawing a lot of cards, but I don't know if they're cards that will deal with a wide board like this. So I paid 1 for the X, but I got 2 counters because of the Mentor. So next turn I can Quirion Dryad, bounce his blocker, and swing for a bunch. Alright. I don't know if a bunch is... Oh, it untaps them too. That Rally of Wings is such a crazy card. Alright. Hotly's Raptor is also a very good card. So he's got mana open. It could be a counter spell. Could be bounce. So I'm not really able to risk... I think my best bet is the Raptor and save Unsubstantiate. This is going to put a bunch of counters on all my stuff. Unfortunately not these two, but let's see how big everything gets when I do this. The answer, extremely big. And we'll just swing with, might even just swing with the Mentor, because it'll gain me life, and I think that's an important amount of life. Because when he dies, yeah. I'm gonna go for it. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm just going to put the Borrower back in his hand. Well, is that going to be... Is this lethal then? He would have to chump block with something? Yes, so... I'm just going to put the Borrower back in his hand, which funds my Dryad and the Scourge. No, you don't want to block like that, because you lose... Yeah, this is going to... He's not going to like how this turns out. His Dasher Octopus is going to shrink and die. He goes to 2 and loses his board. Alright. Brazen Borrower is not going to get you there now. We did it. That was dicey. I like Unsubstantiate, but I don't think I'm good enough to play that card. Knowing when to hold back mana for Unsubstantiate is not a skill I am good at. Alright, well, let's look at the deck again, see what things we can change up. A card occurred to me after I built the deck that I haven't really tested out yet, but I think Zagana Utopian Speaker is probably better for this deck than Skatewing Spy. It is a 4-drop that similarly gives our guys evasion. All of our creatures with +1/+1 counters have trample rather than flying. Usually they're big enough that it's okay. Like that Hydra was an 11/11. Flying, trample, kind of the same thing in terms of killing our opponent. That basically it turns off chump blocking is what we want. And when that comes in, if we have a creature with a counter on it, we draw a card, which is almost guaranteed. So this is a 4/4 body that replaces itself and triggers our stuff. I think it probably is just better than Skatewing Spy. We've got two options for removal. We've got Titanic Brawl and Hunter's Edge. Brawl is going to cost 1 if we target a creature with trample or with a counter on it, and it fights one of their creatures, so we could have used a big creature to fight that Terror of the Peaks. It's okay answer. And we've got like a 4/4, we can pick off one of their blockers. That would be troublesome. Doesn't work with Death Touch, though, because the Death Touch will kill our guy back, and that's... I've had trouble with Death Touch blockers for this deck, because we can't really lose any of our cards. That's what the Feat of Resistance and stuff is for. But Hunter's Edge is also an option, and this is going to do the same thing as Titanic Brawl, but instead of costing 1, it's going to put a counter on our creature first. So that's going to trigger our Wildwood Scourge, and it's going to put a counter on like our Huatli's Raptors and Mentors for proliferate purposes. So that's fun. We ran into a lot of board wipes, so we might consider going from Unbreakable Formation to Heroic Intervention. I really like Formation as a kill spell because it just puts so many counters on our things. And when you've got a Mentor out, that's pretty lethal. +2 to all your guys and swing. It usually kills the opponent. Heroic Intervention's not going to be able to do that for us, so it's a little weaker. But, as we saw, we're usually just too slow to keep up Indestructible mana on all of our stuff. So cutting off that 1 mana from Unbreakable down to Heroic Intervention might be worth it. Or it might be worth it just to play a little bit slower, more cautiously than I did, if the opponent never gets a chance to use their board wipes effectively. Like, imagine if we had just played slow, they wipe the board, or they choose not to wipe the board when we've got just 1 creature. Next turn we play 1 more creature. He's like, okay, now I need to wipe the board. And we've got an answer for it at that point. Not for Extinction Event, obviously, that would have killed us no matter what, unfortunately. But the Shatter the Skies, we could have played more cautiously and not played into him. But I wanted to put pressure on so he didn't get a chance to draw with the Castle Lochthwains. Didn't pay off. We should have just waited on our Unbreakable Formation. So, it's a matter of play skill. I have a hard time figuring out when I should push and when I should just hold back counterspells and Indestructible Protection. But it's a fun deck. Like, everything kind of gels together really nicely. All of your stuff's triggering other things. You got a lot of versatility in how your deck maneuvers. You can protect your stuff. You can bounce their things or protect your stuff. It's just a lot of fun. So I recommend giving it a try if you happen to see this video before everything rotates. You can still play it in Historic, but you'll get wrecked. This is kind of a fun send-off deck. I've seen this deck get played a little bit, but I think the blue variation, I enjoyed playing Merfolk Skydiver. I think it's a really solid card, 2/2 flyer. I'm always about that. So, all right, this is gonna be our last deck before rotation for Zendikar Rising. We'll have pre-releases going on over the weekend, and I'll be back with something new and fresh for the new standard post-rotation. So we'll see you next week.